Hello friends, Tanya here with a video featuring the Spellbinders September 2021 Club Kits, 3 of them. This one is the pop-up 3D Vignette Vintage Cash Register. It looked a little intimidating at first, but I have to say that it came together pretty nicely. Here are all of the dies that come in this die set. And there are a lot of great detail pieces, but it doesn't take as long as I thought to put it together. There are several dies that cut out sentiments also, which I love when they include those in these die sets. It makes them so much more versatile. Here are all of the pieces that I die cut to create this card. Some of them have 2 pieces. The inserts have 4 pieces, and we're going to do a little modifying on those tabs. Look at the gorgeous embossed detail on these pieces. This was one pass, not using any specialty plates, just the regular cutting plates and your dies. And this is 80-pound colored cardstock from my stash. It came out amazing. I am so impressed. Some of these I used some shimmer cardstock that I will link in the description box below. And any of the specialty cardstocks that have some shimmer and shine are going to show you these details even more. This is a piece that goes along the bottom edge. Here are all the little fine detail pieces that die cut. The little circles are for the keys. We've got the crank, we've got some details, and we have the little numbers. Okay, let's get started on the assembly. I am using my Barely Art Precision Glue to do all of the assembly here. I do add just a little bit of some score tape or some double-sided tape here. I'm adding the front of the cash register drawer here, and then the little detail on the bottom edge. And we're just going to work on the side that's going to face you when you are looking at the card. We're just going to start with that side first. Just going to glue that down. And these all have indentations or embossing marks on the paper that help you figure out where the pieces go. The handle, you can leave that nice and flat, and that will fit on the front of the cash register drawer, or you can do a little bit of bending and curling on that handle to make it have a 3D effect. And I chose to do that, and it was super easy. I just adhered that down. I did use a shimmery white cardstock for that also. Now these pieces for the cash register buttons, I die cut from the gold shimmer, a white shimmer, and the yellow. Nope, just the gold and the white. I did cut the buttons 3 times, 2 with the gold. No, 2 with... I honestly can't remember right now. It must have been 6 times because I needed... No, 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Yes, 2 with the white and 2 with the gold because I needed twice the number of the larger buttons. You can see here that there are 2 different sizes of buttons here, and 8 of them are the larger and 4 of them are the smaller. And I am just adhering those over the embossed detail, making sure that I take these slightly oblong circles and adhering them in the orientation that the embossing shows. And that helps create the curvature of that piece, giving you some dimension. Now I'm going to add the little gold centers for all of these. I'm just using my pickup stick here to pick those up, and a dab, just a tiny dab of the Barely Art Precision Glue to adhere those to the base for the cash register buttons. There is some lovely detail on there. You would not have to add these extra pieces because the embossing detail is lovely also, but I wanted to go all out with this card. I wanted to make sure that I used most, if not all, of the pieces that come in this die set. Now I wanted this to stand out a little bit, add some extra dimension, so I am using a piece of coaster blank here. Coaster blank is simply a paper pulp product that is comes in coaster blanks. You can order them that way, just like you would get coasters at the restaurant for under your drink. And these just don't have any pre-printed things on them. I just like the weight and the amount of dimension they give, and the fact that they die cut. Now we're adding some details to the cash register, and again, just using the embossing on the panel, on the main body of the cash register panel, to help me figure out where these go. They add a nice touch to this cash register. I could see this done in so many different color combinations. You could even do some ink blending. You can use a little bit of sanding if you have some cardstock that has a white core or a craft colored core, and you can sand that down and make that even more prominent. Here we're using those cash register tags, or I don't even know what you'd call them. I'm going to call them tags. That's just it. I am backing the ones that have die cut characters on them, and backing them with whatever is the opposite, because I die cut these with the gold shimmer, the white shimmer, and the plain yellow cardstock. And now I'm going to adhere them to the back of this piece that is the front of the card. I did cut a window out on this one so I could have these little tags showing. Now I guess on a cash register, not just the cashier would need to see the price that you have to pay, but the customer would also, so you'd be able to see it on the other side. However, we're not going to do that on this one. We're just going to have it show on the front of the card. I did have some of these a little lower than the ones that actually show a price, and I understand that those aren't completely accurate to how that would show up, but it's a card. It's just going to give that feel. I'm experimenting with how I want to place the handle that would tell you the amount. So with these old cash registers, you'd punch in your numbers and then pull down on the crank to get your total. So this is such a cute detail, and so many details were thought of on this cash register. I'm simply impressed. Now we're going to add the details to the back of this cash register card. Again, just applying the drawer detail. There wouldn't really be a drawer on this end, but it would be sticking out further than the upper portion. So we're just going to stick with that. Plus, I'd already cut them out, and it's such a beautiful detail. Now we're going to assemble the innards of this card. On the back of the idea card that you get with the dies, it shows you how to trim off some of these tabs in order to create this card. You can see what is the bottom by the little slit in the tab. The little slit is going to slip onto and lock this piece in. So we're going to keep 2 tabs with the middle tab showing, or 2 cards with the middle tab showing, and 1 with the top tab and 1 with the bottom tab. So you'll have 4 cards total, insert cards, to put in the inside of this card. And we're going to adhere the fancy top detail to the top of the one that I've cut the sentiment out of, and we're going to we're going to place this so that the gold shows through the die cut sentiment. You do not have to sandwich this between 2 pieces of white cardstock, because I have left this long enough to just show the gold on the back. You'll see that it comes together quite nicely. And this is a 2 3/4 inch wide card, the insert there, and that's how wide I cut the gold paper before I die cut it. Now I'm going to add a little bit of the score tape. This happens to be 1/8 inch score tape to these tabs, and we're going to fold and crease these well. This is what's going to be the folding mechanism that creates the dimension and allows this to fold flat for placing in an envelope. Once I have those all creased, I'm going to start the assembly. We're going to start with the furthest back piece, and this one is a middle, I think this is a middle tab one. Yes. And I did struggle a bit. The humidity was so high at my house, and I do not have air conditioning, so there was no tempering of that. It was pouring rain while I created this. And we needed rain so badly here. Not as bad as the West, but we definitely have had the least amount of rain this summer that I've ever seen in my life in Minnesota. So anyway, my paper is a little less cooperative while I'm assembling this than normal. It was a little soggy and extra bendy. So it did take me a little longer than it has taken me in the past to assemble these. However, it does come together. I assembled one side and now I'm going to assemble the other. This is really the secret to assembling these with the most efficient manner. Now we'll just tuck each of these through the slit and make sure that it's engaged in the bottom so it's all the way in and down. And then we'll have a nice moving mechanism. I did decide to keep all of this in so that you can see how that this is truly assembled. I believe that 3D cards really do require some extra attention for videos. Most people are a bit intimidated by multi-piece 3D cards, but they are not difficult. It just requires a little bit of effort and sometimes seeing how someone else did it to make give you the courage to give it a try yourself. These 3D vignette cards are so stinking cute. I am always, when I first get these particular dies, I am dreading a little bit putting them together. But once I actually take the plunge and do it, they actually come together pretty easily. And I really enjoy it. So every time I'm like, why was I so afraid of this card? So I encourage you to go ahead and take that step and just do it. Start playing with it. You'll find that you really enjoyed it. The biggest trick for this particular set is getting this centered in the cash register piece. It doesn't fit flush with the ends. The cash register base is actually wider than the innards. So the best way to do it is to have it fully extended, line up the bottom panel, or the bottom of the longest or the lowest panel with the bottom, and then center that and tack it down. Watch how I did it. It's a little harder to explain with words. At least I'm having troubles with my words. And I did the same for the back. I just carefully centered that. And again, the humidity is working against me. My glue is not sticking as quickly as normal. You may have noticed that I put a little Barely Art precision glue over the top of the exposed score tape before I assembled this. This was to give me a little bit of wiggle room to make this work out perfectly, since I was not having like a clear line where I needed to put these pieces when I assembled it. And that is the finished card. I figure we can write a message on the back here. You could do all kinds of extra decorating if you wanted. Now we're going to move right on to the second card. This time we are going to take a rainbow of scraps here. Okay, not a rainbow. Red, orange, yellow is where we're heading with this. And we're going to take that very ornate die that would normally cut out the drawer piece for the cash register. And we're going to cut a bunch of strips in the different colors. Then we're going to take candied apple, spiced marmalade, and scattered straw distress oxide inks, which are available in the Spellbinders shop. And we're going to ink blend this 5x7 panel. Actually, I believe this is 4 3/4 by 6 3/4 because those strips that we die cut are 4 3/4 inch long. And we're going to adhere these to this card base, or excuse me, this card panel. Now I'm using my ink blending tools to apply the ink to this, and it was super fast. I think it took me just over a minute to ink blend this entire panel. What helps is that my sponges are all quite saturated with color before I even get started. I have actually moved to a system with my ink blending tools where there is a single handle and sponge for every single color. I just got tired of having to pull the sponges off and having the Velcro die and having the sponges die a little sooner than they needed to. And because I am going to order enough handles for every single Distress Oxide and every single Distress ink to have their own handle and sponge. Now I'm taking some ink, some gold shimmer paint here, and you could use the gold, what do they call it? Silk, and do it with that, and added some spatter along with some water spatter. And now we're going to take these pieces that we've die cut with that beautiful embossed detail rectangle, and we're going to adhere those to this card base to create a wonderfully colorful and rich, bold background. I am just using my grid mat here to help line up these pieces, and I'm going to start out with the left and the right pieces here to get the alignment all figured out. Now I do eventually figure I need to add some other way to help with the spacing, because I know myself, I'm laying these all out. I would knock them around and not get my placement the way I liked. I do like this placement for the colors, so we're going to stick with that. Now I'm going to take a little washi tape and stick this right down to my my mat so that the paper isn't moving around, and the grid lines will be even more help. You can see that grid line X right at the center below the card, and we're going to find on 1/2, we're going to center 1/2. So I'm going to take this piece and adhere that down, and then I can center the other 2 pieces on that side of the card, just between those 2. By making the areas I need to space smaller, it's easier to maintain the correct spacing. It doesn't have to be exact, but pretty close and straight. That's what I was aiming for. With that pattern, or excuse me, with that ink blended and spattered background, you have a little more freedom with your placement to not be as exact as you would be if it was a stark white background. I'm just going to adhere all of these down and take a moment to talk a little bit about the club kits. I personally get every single club kit that Spellbinders puts out every month. You can save a lot of money if you buy the total package. I believe it's $135 value, and if you buy it as the total package, you pay $100 for it. And you get all of these coordinating items. Now we're going to pull out the Glimmer of the Month kit. This is the Glimmering Build-A-Banner, and it comes with the polished brass foil. That's another wonderful part of doing the Glimmer foil of the month. You get to build your collection of actual foils too. I'm taking some white cardstock here. This happens to be it's either a 100-pound or 120-pound. That's my favorite way to get perfect glimmering. I am going to tape these down with some of the Best Ever craft tape from Spellbinders, and it really is the best tape. It sticks perfectly. It has a nice strong hold, and yet it doesn't peel your paper apart or get too affected by the heat when you're glimmer hot foiling. So it comes off easily when you're done with your project, and yet holds nice and strong when you're doing the placement of your dies and your glimmer hot foil plates. I'm just going to add a little more tape, and you might be able to tell, but I reuse these pieces over and over and over again. My crafting area is actually a china hutch that I converted into a standing height desk. And on the back mirror, I have all these little pieces of washi tape stuck that I'm going to use over and over again. When they get too small or too junky or don't have enough stick, then I get rid of them. Now the striped parts of this banner glimmer foil, they do tend to overfoil a little bit for me, and it might possibly be my sandwich, but I'm gonna go with it. I just used this eraser. It's just a regular pink eraser, pink pearl eraser, and remove the extra overfoiling, and it looks fantastic anyway. We are going to use the coordinating dies that come with the Glimmering Build-A-Banner dies, or excuse me, foil and die set, to die cut out the different pieces of the banner. The curved pieces are perfect for cutting out the sentiments, and the straight pieces cut out the striped glimmer foil wonderfully. Those are kind of a shadow piece. At least that's how I've been using them. I wonder, I might have to try this. How that stripe would work if you use the opal glimmer foil and then foiled over the top of it to get your sentiment. Ooh, that sounds like an interesting concept. These glimmer foil plates also do some embossing, or they press down into the paper also. So that might interfere, but I think it's worth an experiment. Stay tuned. So in order to adhere these together, you just line up the edge of the ends, and that'll get you the angles you need. And I did give a little dimension to the sentiment part by just curling it a little bit with my fingers, just running my finger along the paper to add a little lift in the center of the banner. I'm just going to go through and adhere each of these pieces together, and then I'm going to have a gorgeous banner to put on the center of any card. It is so detailed and beautiful that you could adhere just this to any panel. It could be a plain old white panel that you added this to, or it could be some pattern paper or a ink blended background like we're going to do this time. It has such an impact. It doesn't actually require a whole lot more. And it doesn't look, it's pretty gender neutral. So this would work for male or female cards. It would work for young or old. I think this banner glimmer foil is going to be quite a staple in my stash. Loving that. I love how that turned out. So I'm trying to decide if I want to do this in portrait or landscape orientation. You could do either. I think I'm going to go with portrait though. I have put a little bit of coaster blank on the back of this card base or card panel, and I'm going to adhere this to a 5x7 card base and just using the Barely Art precision glue, just trying to get that all lined up. I still am able to eyeball it most of the time. I am going to put my Misty on top of that just to give it a little extra time to finish adhering, especially with the high humidity here. Just going to center this, since there are 8 strips of cardstock that show or have on this card panel, it's easy to center. There was a close-up quick. Now we're going to move on to the clear stamp of the month. This is called A Little Birdie Told Me, and there are coordinating dies. Spellbinders is now going to release coordinating dies for the clear stamp of the month every month. I don't know about you, but that is fantastic news. I love me some coordinating dies. We are going to use red, orange, and yellow to color these little birds and chicks. And I love this folksy design on these birds. I have always been a fan of this slightly Nordic look. And I really enjoy the very simple coloring that can be achieved with these particular images. They have the nice color blocking, and they encourage whimsical and fantastical coloring, or that you can use any color combo you like. And it's very fitting for fall. I don't know what it is about cooling off weather and winter weather that makes these style of images so fitting to me. Maybe just because the culture and the climate of the Nordic area fits where I live. We are just using a couple of colors for each of the birds and the chicks. And then I'm just using some green for the greenery, and we're going to create a yellow flower with a little orange center. I do believe I don't use, I think I do something else for the center in the end, but this is cute too. Here are the coordinating dies that you can purchase separately with the clear stamp of the month. And I'm going to use everything but that little banner, because that's not going to, the banner isn't going to fit the design I'm going to use today. Now these are the same sponge or ink distress. Boy, I can't find my words today. Ink blending tools, there we go, that I used earlier, but I'm going to not pull out the ink pads necessarily, and I'm just going to do a light application of color. I just want a little bit of a gradient background to create this panel for the card. I am again going to spatter it with water, and we're going to pull in that gold shimmer ink to do a little bit of spattering with that. May as well carry that theme all the way through, right? And then I am going to, I did heat set this, by the way. I'm going to use my anti-static tool because I want to gold heat emboss this circular image from the stamp set. Just using some clear embossing ink to stamp this. I believe I stamp it 3 times. This paper has been very well played with. It's got ink blending and spattering, and now we're going to do some gold heat embossing. I'm going to pull out some gold embossing powder here, sprinkle that on, and heat set that with my heat tool. And it turns out beautifully. It even goes right over the top of that gold shimmer ink, which I am impressed with. I wasn't sure how that was going to work. Next, I pulled out the large die of the month from July 2021. It's a card builder. It's a mini Slimline envelope builder with nested card builder dies. These are all mini Slimline sized, and my mini Slimline today is going to end up being 3 1/4 by 6 1/4 inch. I am using 2 of the dies from that nested card builder set. One has a scallop detail and one has a dotted edging detail. And I'm kind of fussing around with the placement here. Now, I like dimension on my cards, so I'm going to add a scrap piece of cardstock. This is not coaster blank, it's not any other, it's not fun foam. It's just some scrap white cardstock, and I adhered that behind this gold shimmer die cut piece, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the second panel, and just using my Barely Art precision glue, I roughly trimmed out what I needed. And even if you have to piece it together with a couple of pieces of scrap, it's not going to make any difference in how it appears. So you don't have to find a big chunk of scrap cardstock. Just use what you have or skip this. I just really like the dimension, but I didn't think it warranted the level of dimension that coaster blank would give. This just gives it just a little bit of shadow effect on the different layers of these panels. I've adhered those all down, and I have done a Glimmer hot foiled thank you banner because I can always use thank you cards. Who can't? Thank you cards, sympathy cards, and thinking of you cards, I sometimes think we don't create enough of those. I'm just going to adhere that right over that circle that we've gold heat embossed. And then I'm going to take a couple of these leaf branches and add those to add pop of color on this circle banner. I want that banner to really take center stage. So I didn't add any flowers or anything. I did initially think about stamping and Copic coloring some of the flowers that are in the stamp set that don't have coordinating dies. There's a grouping of flowers that would work perfectly in there also, but I chose to leave that fairly simple. We're going to create lots of detail at the bottom of this card. I'm just going to adhere the largest bird directly to the card panel here. I did add a little bit of scrap cardstock to the back of the chicks and the single flower. Just going to adhere those right down on the card base. I got a little glue on the tip of my reverse tweezers. I do really enjoy using the reverse tweezers on these cards so I can get the right placement without knocking things around with my big clumsy fingers. If you don't have a reverse tweezers, I highly recommend getting them for assembling these sweet little scene building cards. I do think that this card would look lovely without the addition of gems, but we're going to do that too. And here I'm showing you how this would look. I think this particular card would make a great baby card, and the congrats would be perfect for that. We're going to take some of these gold gems and add just a little extra zhuzh on them. I added it to the center of one of those of the single flower, and I'm going to add it around the greenery on the circle and banner detail at the top. And that is the last card. Here are some close-up images of all of the cards that I created today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the description box below, or excuse me, in the comments below, which of these cards you like the most. Any questions you have about these products, and which of these styles you already create. If you're interested in any of the supplies that I used today, check the description box below. As always, I'll have a list of the supplies with clickable links. They are affiliate links for the most part, and if you use these to shop, I really appreciate you supporting my channel in this way. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please take a moment to do that now and give this video a like. Here are a few more videos that I thought you might enjoy. Until next time, bye-bye.